Pokemon Legends Arceus is not an open-world game. We've known this for quite some time now, but if you only looked at the trailers that were released, you'd probably think otherwise. You have a home base, and you teleport from said base to large, isolated areas. Legends still looks very fun, but this is pretty disappointing to find out. What if I were to say, however, that there is a Pokemon game that exists, a place like people thought Legends would play like, where you're dropped off on an abandoned island and your only task is to explore to your heart's content? This game does in fact exist, and it's called Pokemon Wild. Pokemon Wilds is a ROM hack made using the Generation 2 engine and libgdx, created by somebody who goes by the name Sheer Street. You explore randomly generated islands to gather resources, catch Pokemon, and explore. Wilds drops you off on a deserted island with only a Machop to start with. Some of the Pokemon you can find hanging out will be friendly enough to join up on the spot, but most will ignore you at best. You can still catch Pokemon the old-fashioned way, but Pokeballs are rare, meaning you'll need to gather apricorns to make your own. However, if you go searching for buried trees like you did in the Johto games, you'll soon run into a problem. No matter how many buried trees you shake, none of them will drop apricorns. You get these apricorns through the expanded HM system. HMs work very differently in this game compared to the normal games. In Wilds, each Pokemon comes with their own list of HM moves they can use, and none of these moves take up a slot. There are some new HM moves you can use, as well as the many returning old ones. Generally, HMs are tied to a Pokemon's type. Water types tend to have access to Surf, and grass types tend to have access to Cut, but it's not exact science. Small Pokemon can't use HMs that involve carrying the player, and some Pokemon will get additional HM moves based off their lore. For example, Alolan Raichu has Teleport and Power based off of its typing, but also gets access to Surf since it's a surfer. My tongue didn't slip when I specified Alolan Raichu either. Wilds pulls together a mix of Pokemon from various generations. Not every Pokemon is available, but your options have been greatly expanded compared to the original Gold, Silver, and Crystal. Anyway, HMs are, as usual, needed to explore around the world, and there's quite a variety of them this time around. You can cut down very large trees for lumber, dig holes for soil, ride on the back of a Pokemon to go faster, and much more. Not all the HMs are created equally though. Once you gain access to Fly, just about every other HM that lets you navigate the world becomes obsolete. And since you can only have 6 Pokemon with you at a time, you'll likely be benching the ones that you used to use for navigation. For me, it took quite a while to unlock Fly, but theoretically, it could happen shortly after starting the game. There's discussion on the Discord as how to alleviate this problem, so it probably won't stay an issue forever. But as of right now, it's Fly or bust. Pokemon Wilds is pretty wild, but it isn't a paradise. There are a few flaws here and there, which I guess is to be expected from a game still in alpha. I think the beginning is a bit rough, even when comparing Wilds to similar games. The starting Machop makes sure you always have access to the build command, but that command is worthless without a grass type to cut down resources. Personally, I got unlucky and had to start over after I spent all my Pokeballs on other Pokemon without knowing the importance of grass type. The game does account for this, as Blossom is a common spawn, and they're guaranteed to be friendly. But again, I got unlucky and couldn't find one. Due to the lack of structure in the game, there's also a lack of a sense of progression. Unlike say Minecraft or Terraria, where there are systems in place to see your progress clearly, Wilds doesn't really have a feeling of progressing. Sure, you can build the Sylph Scope and identify ghost types, and there are a few dungeons to explore and conquer, but that's about it. And from my experience, it's hard to devote yourself to large projects because of this lack of progression. I started building a village here, but I eventually ran out of steam because it's not like anything will happen once I finish building it. One big problem with the gameplay is the lack of TMs. This kind of makes sense since you're on a deserted island, but it ends up doing a lot more harm than it does good. All of the Pokemon that were available in Generation 2 used their generally poor Generation 2 level up learn sets. While I'm unsure where the level up learn sets of the newer Pokemon comes from, they don't have it much better. This basically makes a ton of Pokemon simply unusable, especially if they've been cursed with a poor set of HM moves to boot. There are some small annoyances throughout the game too, which is to be expected, but it still stinks when they come up. Breeding is a feature in this game, and it's done by putting 2 compatible Pokemon into the same pen. Before long though, that pen will be overran with eggs, and if too many eggs show up on the island, they'll stop spawning naturally. There is a way to get rid of eggs besides hatching them, but it's kinda cruel to do it. I mentioned before how Fly is really good in this game, but a big part of what makes that HM so good is that the alternatives are really bad. Surfing isn't too bad all things considered, although there are large sections of island where you won't be able to surf. The oceans, where you can surf, are also filled with Sharpedo, and they love to pester you. Ride is even worse. It's very easy to get stuck on terrain with this HM, to the point where the speed boost that it gives is rarely worth it. But despite those complaints, I still think Pokemon Wilds is a pretty cool idea. It reminds me a lot of Pixelmon, and it feels great to play once you get the hang of things. The problem is that once you do get a hang of things, it can be hard to keep playing, since there's not really all that much to do. But once again, this game is still in alpha, so I'm hoping it will be expanded on as time goes on. Hey, if you enjoyed the video, I'd really like it if you'd subscribe to the channel. I'm starting to try to get a structure together where I want to release a video at least once a month, hopefully twice a month. I'm not sure how long I'll be able to keep it up, but my schedule has cleared up recently, so it shouldn't be too difficult.